Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to tournament poker strategy. And now, here are your hosts, Ron Fezbuddy and Killingbird.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. Killingbird here with you, and as always, joined by my co-host, Ron Fezbuddy. What is up, sir?
Man, I just love that theme song, that opening song.
It's a good one, right?
Yeah, every time, I don't listen to the podcast because I can't listen to 3 hours of myself.
Me neither.
But I do sometimes listen to the opening segment, and I love that song, and I know we do you always outro with it as well, or do we?
Yeah, like 99% of the time.
I have
every once in a while I throw something different.
I have listened to full podcasts, and I have gone through the whole end song with it. I just love that song. Great pick.
Well, I still make like a penny a month or something off of that, so it's good.
Oh, so it's more profitable than poker for you then?
Basically, yes. If you want to jump right into the results, yes, it is.
Now, you didn't you just final table the Bovada 30K, which is a pretty big tournament to final table. Didn't you do that yet? I know. I'm sorry. I went there.
I've actually final tabled it twice in the last week.
Did you? Wow, I only knew about the one.
Yeah, and fifth both times.
Oh, my God. Kill yourself.
I know. It's getting a little bit painful. I mean, I can't really complain too much because, I've talked about this on my Twitch stream and with some other people and stuff, but I was basically a Sunday away from being down $6,000, and then I had a Sunday saver where I final tabled the 30K and the 12K, I think it was, and I think I finished fifth in both, but it was like enough to like kind of save the day and get me a little bit out of that hole, and then had a couple of more binks, and then another 30K final table. So we're like, we're scratching at the surface of not being down anything. Yeah. But we've just had so many close calls, and in tournaments that I've always wanted to win, like the 30K. Yeah. I finished second in that before, but I've always wanted to win it. I've always wanted to win the 15K, which I final tabled the other night too, and we finished sixth in that. So we're scratching.
What is fifth in the 30K paying these days?
Last night, it was actually kind of a bigger one last night. It was 1,800.
Oh, okay.
The time before that, it was like 1,600. So like a little bit of a big field for whatever reason.
And first is what, like 7K? 8K?
Yeah, it was almost exactly 7K last night.
Oh man, 4 spots. Like, just sucks to go 4 spots away from that 2 times.
Yeah, and we came in as the chip leader too, so that was a little frustrating. Like, just things weren't working, and one of those tournaments where like everything you did didn't work, and all the short stacks kept doubling, and just kind of like a frustrating session. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, poor me. I won 800. Like, I can't really complain too much. So
how has it been being back full? I mean, I know our last podcast was a little bit after the World Series ended, but now you've been back home for a while. How's the grind going? Just like, how does it feel? Are you back to normal, or do you still have visions of the World Series in your head?
No, yeah, I've kind of gotten back into the groove of things. It's helped a little bit. Like, on a personal note, my son went off to college 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, congratulations, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm very excited for him and excited for us too, because I guess we've done our job. Like, we raised a child and got him off into the world.
You are an empty nester. Wow.
I know, it's crazy,
That's
right?
That's so odd.
Yeah, but it's great from a poker playing.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we're relatively we're pretty much the same age, and my kids are 6 and 8. Like I'm so far out from where you are still.
It is weird to think that it all happened, relatively young, so fast.
Yeah, but you got a lot ahead of you.
But yeah, it's just different now because all of a sudden, like, all we have is like ourselves. Yeah. So it's like I don't have to plan around anything or anything. It's just kind of like, if I feel like playing poker, I just play. Right. And my wife goes and eats with her friends or whatever. There's no Andrew has a school meeting. Right. Or Andrew has or you have to get up with Andrew for school, or just none of that happens. So it makes it easier from a grind standpoint.
Right.
But it's fucking weird from a human parent standpoint.
Well, he's a fine young man. You did a great job with him.
Thanks.
And I saw your post about not watching Impractical Jokers is not the same without him around.
Just not as fun.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Do you know though that this is their 100th anniversary week and they're doing every night there's a new episode and they're doing a big punishment special later?
Yes, and I've been taping them, and it's Labor Day weekend, which I didn't even know. But so Andrew has Monday off school, and he went to school at UNC Charlotte, so he's only like 2.5 hours away.
That's perfect.
So he's coming home for the long weekend.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so he'll be here to watch the episodes that we've taped, and I believe that episode is like, is it this coming weekend or is it the weekend?
It's happening right now. It's this is the week of the every night there's a new episode, and the punishment episode is I think Thursday special.
Okay, yeah.
Episode.
I'll get the chance to watch all of that with him in a few days.
Awesome. Awesome.
So, yeah, should be fun.
Good.
And we'll catch up on the new Walking Dead too, because I saved that for him coming home as well.
Yep.
But after this, he's on his own. I'm watching the rest of the episodes without him. I don't miss him that much. So how about you, poker-wise? Have you been playing online at all?
I've been not playing as much since the World Series, but I've been put a couple sessions in recently because I am playing next week at the Borgata. There's their September series. I don't know. I think it's the Poker Open. I don't know what they call it. It's not the fall Poker Open. I think it's just like a Poker Open. I don't know what.
Just the Borgata Poker Open, probably.
Yeah. I forget what they call it. This one specifically, but it's the Borgata Poker Open. That's exactly it. And it is this is a great series of tournaments this time around. There is a $2 million guaranteed, $560 entry that kicks off the series. That starts on Tuesday, and they have four flights for day 1A through day 1D over 2 days. So they have a 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. and a 5 p.m. I think, or 7 p.m. I'm not sure what it is on both of those first 2 days. And I'm going to go play both of those. Hopefully I'm only going to play one flight instead of 4 bullets, but I'm going to go play that next week, and that runs through the whole week. So I'm going to be at the Borgata. I know a couple of TPers are already going to be there. I know Pierre's going to be there, a couple other folks. So if anyone's going to be at that, please hit me up. I always love meeting TP members. I've been throwing a couple sessions in here and there. I final tabled the Merge High Roller the other night, finished 4th or 5th, just like you.
Pain.
Yeah, pain. It's, keeping my bankroll even there.
But at least you're getting you're keeping your chops up for the live stuff.
That's it. I can't play on Bovada because I'm in New York.
That's right. Yeah.
And I have all my money on Merge, and I'm getting it off. It's slow. I'm getting money out, but I got to move money over to ACR, and it's a pain in the ass. And so I play most of my time on Merge.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it.
Well, I wish I was heading to the Borgata. I used to love going up for the Borgata series and like the WSOP circuit event at Harrah's, but now that I get 2 of them here in North Carolina, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
Why travel 8 hours north when I can just go 3 hours to the west?
Although the Borgata crushes the WSOP circuit. Yeah, it really does.
Their events are way better. The structures are better.
This is going to be $2 million. It's going to crush the guarantee probably. So it's a huge tournament, and it's super well run. It's a much nicer place than where the WSOPs are held. So,
isn't that the truth? Yeah.
So,
well, good luck with that.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yep. Hopefully we'll have something fun to report back on the next one.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yep.
Speaking of live poker, we are going to bring in Chris Moon today.
Yes.
Who is fresh off a deep run and a final table in the Heartland Poker Tour in Michigan.
Yep.
So that's going to be really cool. We kind of feel like we've been on a little bit of a live poker kick lately, which is kind of fun, actually.
Yeah.
Coming off the World Series and stuff, and before we know it, it'll be main event final table time. Actually, probably this coming Tuesday? Tomorrow? Tonight? Was it tonight? What day is it?
No, I know the circuit stuff just ran. So yeah, I think it might have started tonight.
Wow,
Interesting.
God, I have to get my days straight.
Yeah, it is Tuesday. It is Tuesday.
Yeah, so maybe it was on.
It's
good. I'll have something to watch after I'm done with this.
It's Tuesday. It's time for you to finish 5th in the Bovada 30K, Derek.
Whoa! Too late to late reg that one. Thank God.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's
get to Chris then.
Let's wrap up this intro and get Chris Moon in here.
Yep.
So we'll be right back with Chris Moon on the Tournament Poker Edge podcast.
If you are looking for the best MTT training site on the planet, look no further than TournamentPokerEdge.com. Tournament Poker Edge focuses exclusively on multi-table tournaments and features some of the best live and online pros. No waiting through cash game videos looking for the occasional tournament video. Tournament Poker Edge also offers strategy articles, forums, a member chat room, and much more. So visit TournamentPokerEdge.com and start taking your game to the next level now.
Welcome back to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. Time to bring in today's pro. It's been way too long since we've had him on the show, so it's good to have him back. Chris Boone, how are you, sir?
Way too long. That's the way I would describe it, too.
Yes. Way too long. We get to hang out a little bit in Vegas this summer.
Tiny bit,
which was fun. Yeah, we played a little shuffleboard, I think, or at least drank a few beers at the bar where the shuffleboard happens. But yeah, so it's good to get you on the show after, like I said, too long. So how have you been, sir?
I've been doing pretty well, actually. Poker has been going fantastic, having like one of my better summers ever, and just getting done with like the live grind to Vegas, came home and like had a good result, and then I've been kind of like spending the last bit of summer, eking out like all the last couple ounces of fun I can get outdoors while also trying to play as much poker as I can, and that's pretty much just been my life lately.
Before we get into your HPT final table, how much of the World Series did you play? Were you there the whole summer, or did you do a shorter stint?
I was actually there all summer. I focused a lot less on tournaments this summer. Mm-hmm. I still played quite a few of them, but previous summers I would go and pretty much play like 80-20 MTTs versus cash, and this year it was like quite the opposite. Actually, it was like 80-20 cash versus MTTs. Wow. Yeah. Played quite a bit of PLO cash and then like 5-10, 10-20 no limit cash as well, and then some tournaments including the main event and some satellites.
Nice.
It was funny because I just listened to Mark Eliotto on another podcast, Daryl Jace's podcast.
I was listening to that earlier today too, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, and I'm sure you heard him say that if he really just wanted to make money, he would go to the World Series and just play cash all summer.
Yeah,
and not even play tournaments.
That kind of started to hit me this year. In previous summers, I don't think I really appreciated like how much variance you can really like withstand or experience. Yeah. This is the best way to put it. When you go and like just put together a portfolio of I'm only going to play 1500s and like 3Ks and like the main event and some satellites and like not play cash. Like my first year ever playing pro, I went out there like right after I graduated and just like brought like a 50K bankroll and was like, oh, I'm going to do just fine.
Right.
1800s and 2500s and like, 1600 Venetians and all that stuff. And like, there's no way this could go wrong. But yeah, this year I kind of come in with the mindset that, this is all I do for a living now. And that's, all I intend to do for a living for a little while. So, if I'm going to maximize my summer out there with like the lowest variance possible, so to speak, within poker, just went and played, just focused a lot more on cash, but also still gave myself like a few opportunities to like, bank a couple 100,000 here and there if I could as well.
You gotta go for the glory. You gotta go for the glory. you get that from the MTTs, not from the cash games.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is like I didn't get into this game when I was a teenager because I wanted to play like 5-10 no limit cash every day. You know? Yeah. But at the same time, it's like I still need to make money. So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's perfectly reasonable. So what tournaments did you play at the WSOP? Anything interesting?
I played the 1500 shootout. I played a couple 1500s. I played that Colossus landmine cluster thing. I think I actually lasted a couple hours in the Colossus, but I know that like Monster Stack one, I late regged and showed up and lasted like 45 minutes and left, so that's not a good showing. Cashed in the little one drop, and then played a couple satellites to get into the main, and had a nice ROI on those, and then busted the main on day one. Last hand of day one.
That's it. Well, I guess you did you go right home after that? I guess you got to go home earlier, or did you stick around?
I think I stuck around for like maybe 1 or 2 more days. We had a friend who's staying with us in the house that like made a pretty deep run. Okay. I didn't stay for the whole thing, but stayed for a couple more days and then came home. Usually at that point of the summer, I generally just like bust my last tournament. You know, look up on an app on my phone like when the next flight out of town is, and just like go directly there and not care how much it costs.
Yeah, absolutely. We can all sympathize with that after a lot of unfortunately disappointing ends to tournaments. At that point, you're ready to just go home.
Absolutely, yeah. And the way that last, the last hand of like the main event, and like just to lose on like the very last hand of the first day, it's just like so brutal. It's just like I'm out of here.
That's frustrating. So. A month passes, and then you find yourself at the Heartland Poker Tour. Did you play live? Did you do anything between that? Did you take time off, or did you continue grinding during that time frame?
It's been a little while, so my memory's not perfect. But generally, I think got home, probably took like a week or 2 off max, and then just got right back to it. My work ethic of late has been just like all I really want to do is play and try and make as much money as I possibly can, and so. Definitely been playing like quite a bit of live PLO cash and some live no limit cash with respect, and also some online tournaments as well. And then was probably just doing that, like breaking even, keeping afloat for a little while, and then went and played this and was fortunate enough to have some success.
So tell us about it. Tell us about that experience. We'll get into some hands soon enough, but tell us about the motivation to play it. Was this something you had to travel to? And what was it like? I've actually never played a Heartland Poker Tour event. Did you like it? Was it a fun event, or what's your impression of it?
I do like them. They've gone through some structure changes in the years that I've been going there, some good and some bad. But I consider this event at Soaring just because it's 90 minutes away, maybe 2 hours away from my home downtown. It's kind of hard to justify not going.
Right.
It's just there's usually so much money to first, and the fields are generally not difficult. They run a lot of great satellites, and again, it's just like so close. Like there's only so many tournaments on the regional circuit that like someone could drive to basically, and this is definitely one of them. So
right.
So I've made a habit of going almost every time I can in the last 4 or 5 years or whatever, and so this was no exception. Definitely had to find my way out there this year.
How long is this tournament? Is it like multiple day ones? Is it like 4 days? Like what's the length of this? How they structure it?
It's slightly different in every city, if I recall correctly, but it's generally like 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 day one flights. So sometimes it's usually over like 3 days, and maybe like the last day they'll stack like 2 flights, or they'll just do like 2 days of 2 flights each kind of thing. They're 40-minute levels on the first day, and then I think like either from right in the money or on day 2 they're 1-hour levels.
Okay.
They're you start out with a lot of chips, and the blind structures don't go up like incredibly fast. It's like whatever they called it, like chainsaw approved or some shit. Couldn't care less, but you get the idea.
For those who don't know what Chris means there, it was Alan Chainsaw. What's his last name?
Kessler
from the 2+2 forums and Twitter is definitely someone who tweets, talks, posts a lot about the structures of tournaments and picks the nuanced, intricate issues with the structures. And he's like a watchdog for that. So if it's approved by Chainsaw, it's probably a pretty well-structured tournament.
Yeah, and to their credit, I mean, it like the levels themselves are well structured. It kind of does get a little bit fast with like the 40-minute blind levels and just like the general pace of play with like, you know, the average age of that crowd. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about it. But
yeah. So what is a Chainsaw? So a Chainsaw approved structure, is that one that doesn't cater too much to the early stages and allows more play in the mid to late stages, or does it throughout the whole thing provide a lot of open play?
It does provide a lot of play. I think it was like 30K starting, 100 big blind to start, then 150, 1-2, 1-2 with an ante, or maybe 153 was the first ante. I can't recall perfectly. But you get like the 250, 500 level, which is kind of nice. You don't get that in other tournaments. Like you get the 2.5K, 5K level with a 500 ante, which you don't get in a lot of other tournaments.
Yeah.
Because like 500s have already been like taken off the mat by then.
Right. Yeah, I think the issue that a lot of people have who look at these and study the tournament structures is that they tend to cater towards this concept of deep stack, where you get like a zillion chips in the beginning and the antes are like 25-50 or 50-100, and it seems like you're super deep, but as the levels progress, they miss key levels, which bring you in the mid game, actually make it more open and less skillful than it could be if you're adding the levels that you just mentioned there, Chris. So I think that's what people look at when they're looking at the good structures. Well, what's going on in the mid level? Are we stealing from that portion of the tournament to cater to make it the illusion of these stacks are gigantic to start? Because people kind of like that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and I didn't mean to kind of like seem like I was shitting on Kessler by saying it that way.
No.
It's definitely like their marketing tool for like how they, like our structure is great. It's Kessler approved, like whatever the hell that means,
Yeah. People need to understand that just because you're starting with 30,000 chips and the blinds are 50, 100, if you're going to miss those levels that Chris just mentioned, the 250, 500, the 2500, 5,000, it starts to get short and tight when it starts to really count. And that's what a good structure will have in there. It'll make sure that when the play gets serious, that you have the room to play. So, anyway, just a little structure education for those who may not dig into the structure sheets. When I go play a tournament, I actually look at the structure sheets.
Take them to search. It's all right. I like it. Take them to school.
That's right. Well, it's an educational podcast. We got to do something for the people.
My guess is Diego actually creates like Excel spreadsheets with algorithms.
Shut up. I do.
VLOOKUPs, and he's like pulling data from one spreadsheet to another. He's like, yes.
I've done that when I knew it. I've done that when I'm considering different tournaments to play, especially like when going to the World Series. And there's the Venetians, which I don't play anymore because of the hypocrisy of Sheldon Anderson. But back a couple of years ago, to really understand the structure, I'd actually like create spreadsheets that compare like where structures are at different points in the tournament. And so thank you for exposing me there, Derek, for the
hashtag door.
Okay, anyway, that's structure tangent.
How did you as a structure nerd?
Yeah, that's true. Look, who doesn't like a little structure porn? Okay, so I'll share my structure spreadsheets if anyone wants. Okay, anyway, little structure tangent, but you were there. You like the structures. Relatively, I have heard that it's a relatively soft field. It attracts a good crowd, recreational crowd, amateurs. So take us through it. Give us an idea of what it was like. I mean, did you fire multiple bullets? Was this something that you were heavily invested in? Like, how did it start off for you?
Yeah, I fired multiple bullets to answer the first question. I busted, I think, one of the last levels on day one. as you mentioned, you start with 30,000 in chips, and I think that was the day where I never went lower than 26 and never went higher than like 38 the entire tournament.
Right.
And then just like busted when blinds were huge, and I just like found a reshove spot kind of thing. That was the Thursday flight, and it was kind of interesting because that day only started with like 60-something people or something like that, and like when I busted, there were like 18 or 21 or something. So there was like concern that, it might actually be paced as such that, you're on like a final table bubble, quote unquote, on day 1A of this tournament. It'd be pretty annoying to sit 6-handed or whatever, like when you don't need to be, as if it's like the final table bubble.
Right.
But fortunately for everyone involved, it didn't really come to that. But that was pretty much day 1A. I think I played like pretty whatever, didn't really get in a lot of interesting, good spots, but toward the end, I was sitting with Josh, who eventually won the tournament, and my friend George, and then they got to watch me get my face melted by an older guy. It was like a really funny hand. There's no strategy whatsoever involved, so I'll just like say it. But this older gentleman who is like, doesn't seem like he's totally with it, I guess is the best way to put it. He is dealt. Me and him both moved to this new table. It's my second hand, and now it's his first hand. And he had been playing at my previous table, which just broke, and he had been playing like pretty crazy. He's dealt into the big blind, but then tries to muck his hand first to act because he thinks he's under the gun, despite just posting a blind.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think it's an angle shoot. Like, I really think he's just like trying to fold his hand. And my friend George goes like, "Oh no, you're the big blind. Hang on to your hand. So it ends up folding all the way to me in the small blind, and I have like I think I have like a 22 big blind stack or something like that. And I just look down at like 8-3 suited and decide like this is an any 2 card spot.
Yeah.
And open to like 3 big blinds or something, just to like really discourage him from like getting embarrassed and peeling.
Yeah.
And so he like looks at his cards and like looks at me and then just makes it like 19 big blinds. And as soon as he does that, like, I can see my two friends like make eye contact with each other, and then like I look down at my hand, I try to like, save face, but like he makes it like he does make it at least like 16 big blinds, like to a point where I have like 0 fold equity and I just have 8 high. So a guy, after trying to muck his hand out of turn, it folds to me, I open, and then I have to open fold to a huge 3-bet from like a 90-year-old man.
You got.
I got so bad. The best part too is like it became clear to George, like, before I folded, that I wasn't going to do anything, and so he just starts laughing out loud, like I'm still acting, Yeah.
We all know when you're thinking you're done. We know you're opening there like 98%, so you're folding, 75%. Like,
I just want to know what the old guy's hand is.
I don't know. He never showed.
Like, it's fascinating to me that he folded and then decided to tried to fold and then put that many chips in. Like, is he just so smart that he knows you're just making a move because you thought he was folding? Or
how many? He had heaps too, so it's like if he did double me up, like he still probably had like 80 big blinds or something like that, So
he had heaps and you said 20 something.
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh my God.
But again, when you pre-fold your hand, I just assumed you're folding a high percentage of the time.
Yeah.
I didn't. You should just stop and go.
I underestimated the stuff. Well, I said that out loud to a friend like after. I was like, well, I guess I could have like stop and go, but probably not really.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was day 1. I think I busted to like one of my friends like shortly thereafter. So it was like a pretty embarrassing situation all in all. But day 1B just went like much better. First couple levels like didn't have too much happening. Had a couple friends from like Motor City games that were at my table that came and went, and just got in some like pretty fortunate situations. Like had an opponent give me a stack with 0% equity on the turn. So like I flush over like top pair and a flush draw at him, and got a stack there and like turn 60K over the course of the day until like I think I ended the first day with like 180 something.
Nice.
And then day 2 is just like, I don't want to say fairy tale, but day 2 is just like so many people just trying to dump off stacks with like no equity whatsoever.
Right.
And Josh was to my right at the start of that day, and like, you know, we started the day off, he was joking like, yeah, try not to 3-bet me every single time I open, ha ha ha. And then he just had to sit there and just like watch these guys just like dump stacks to me like with no equity. And I could just like, I'd shoot him a glance after every big pot, and he would just like roll his eyes.
Love those days.
Yeah.
It was just the best. Everything's so great.
Yeah, toward the end of that day, won like a really, really, really big pot on the final table bubble, and that was all she wrote.
Nice. And we'll go into some strategy of some hands, but this final table featured you and a very close friend, right?
Yep, Josh was the guy that I mentioned before, and he's been a really close friend of mine since, you know, I was starting out grinding charity rooms around Michigan. We were playing like quite a few of the same games, and like I think he was actually like working in the room at one point or another. But we've known each other for quite a long time, and I can't tell you how many times throughout our like poker careers, you know, you've like called or texted or like seen in person and said what up, and been like, one or the other would say to each other like, oh yeah, I'm on like a 40 buy-in downswing, the sky is falling, like life sucks. Like,
yeah.
I hate poker, and you know, you got like the encouragement of like, no, you got this, like chill it out, like things will come back to normal, and like you'll start winning again, and like, you know, so we've been through so many of those. It was so cool to just like, we both just like pick off 6 figures of this thing.
And that's got to be so cool because, you know, the joy, like you guys both know, and I'm sure a lot of people listening who, when they get deep into a tournament and they make a final table and they're making a deep run, the euphoria of it, you know, especially when you get in between days, right? And you get to kind of, you know, you're just kind of in that zone, and unfortunately it doesn't happen as much as you'd like in tournaments. So to have someone having that same exact experience with you, that you can kind of that you could share that with must have just been awesome. Like, were you guys staying together? Were you like how did you guys like have dinner and talk about like the table and like the players? Like what was that? What is that like exactly?
We didn't have dinner at like the final table or like too many of the tables leading up, but we didn't actually technically room together this trip, just because he made it on the first day 1, and so he came back home and like spent 2 or 3 days at home before coming back.
Okay, yeah.
And my sorry ass had to stay there for the whole trip.
Right.
But we have room together on like countless other trips to like, you know, Chicago, Florida, Indiana, Vegas, you name it. Like, and it's right what you said about, you know, it's cool to have like somebody there who's been like a really good friend of yours for a long time and like share the experience. And like for me, this is my first, you know, quote unquote big final table live, at least. So it was, you know, like there's already that excitement, but then it's also exciting, like he was a friend of mine that was at the final table. Alex Ahmed's a friend of mine, was at, you know, to my direct left at the final table for a while.
Oh wow.
Kyle's another guy who's like a Motor City regular that I play with quite a bit. He was at the final table, so like that was really cool as well. Oh, and like Vinny Ho, I think was the name of one of the other guys there. He used to like crush my face at like 2-5 no limit when I would go up there and play at Soaring Eagle actually before like while I was at Michigan State. I would make the trip up there every so often and like play their like Friday 2-5 game. So, you know, I've been playing poker with so many of those guys for like, you know, 7 years or something like that. So it was always it was really cool to like all of us were kind of congregating on this final table and we got to duke it out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now day 2 was the fairy tale day. How many people were left at the end of day 2?
I think we played day 2 down to, am I doing this right? Friday, Saturday? Yeah, I think day 2 was Sunday, and we played that all the way down to like the final table, and then day 3 was the final table.
Day 3 was the final table, okay.
So yeah, the 9. I won a big pot, like kings to ace king to 8s for like a third of the chips in play with like 10 or 11 to go.
Oh wow.
So like, yeah, just got put in this like dream scenario where you just get put, you know, right to the final table with like a third of the chips in play. Like, how could it go wrong, you know?
Oh man, that really is all a dream. and how long was it? I mean, how long was the final table? Was it, you know, 6-hour, 12-hour day? Was it a long final table?
It was a pretty long final table. I think the whole stream for them came out to be something like 8 hours.
Okay.
So like including all the breaks and stuff. I think that might be like my one criticism, honestly, of HPT is like the breaks you just like run through your day when you're playing. Like 40-minute levels, you get like a 10 or 15-minute break, which is like completely fine with me. I'm not an advocate for like the 20 or 30-minute breaks like every 3-4 levels or whatever like you kind of get with the World Series sometimes, but their dinner break was like 45 minutes and it was pretty early in the day. So it's like you run through this really quick dinner break and it's really more like what would be your lunchtime depending on like what time you wake up, like me.
Right.
For a poker tournament. Like I think we started at like 2 in the afternoon, and then your dinner break is at like 4:30 or 5, and then you're at it till like 2, 3, 4 in the morning. So it's like you have this dinner break when it's really would be like lunch, and then you have like just 15-minute breaks for like the rest of the day. So you have to like try and figure out a way to like squeeze a meal in, one of these breaks somewhere. So
did you plan for that? Because at the World Series, what I would do is I would bring like a protein bar or buy fruit from the poker kitchen, and I found that I was able to really kind of time my protein bursts or sugar bursts to the tournament itself. Like if you plan in advance, is it possible to do that in these casinos, or is it just impossible to find anything healthy?
I mean, Soaring Eagle's definitely not known as like the healthiest place to eat quick. I'll say that out loud. I don't think that's going to be too controversial of a statement.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I ended up at PT's Pub after I bust, so it's not like I was really like eating the healthiest while I was out there. But while I was playing, I knew coming in that it was going to be tough to manage like eating well, so I would try to plan for it.
Generally on these kind of things, like these regional stops and like these main events that don't give you that great of a like break structure, I'll try and come with like I'll like run out real quick off campus to get like food in the nearby area if there's time, and when I stop there, I'll just get like 2 meals and like try and base it around something that can sit in a backpack or sit in a car or something for a couple hours and not go like completely gross.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's basically it. I mean, that's the glorious life of playing these Midwestern tournaments. But
so take us down from 9 to the first couple of bust outs. Anything interesting there, or did you or was it more about the last couple of players where the interesting stuff happened?
I didn't make too much of like a chip shift between like 9 and I would say like 6 or 5 players. Definitely, like took all my standard opens and like would 3-bet a more liberal amount than normal. Like I think I 3-bet the first hand against Josh's button open, and then 3-bet him maybe like a couple more times between like 9 and 7-handed, but didn't really get like too big of a push. I would say until we were down to like 5-handed, but a lot of that too was like they had mentioned in the stream like I wasn't opening many buttons and like I was playing tighter than I had like backed off a little bit or whatever, and most of that was just because like it'd be unopened to me on the button. I'd look down at 5-deuce offsuit, and I had like 2 people to my left who would call like every open and try and play out of position. It's like okay, well I guess I can't open this one, so few of that for a little while, and then like once we got down to like I think Kyle busted and the teacher busted whose name escapes me, and then Alex busted in 7th, and that was when I had a pretty big hand against Alex where I opened button. It was folded to me on the button. He opened kings. He actually I think made like a great play to not go broke this hand. He flatted ace queen offsuit in the small blind, where I think a lot of people would have preferred to 3-bet me.
How deep were you guys?
I'm gonna have to remember the hands. It's I want to say we were like 30 or 40 plus deep, and I would say we were like somewhere between like 30 and 40 deep. I covered the whole table, but I can't remember his exact chip stack.
Right.
I opened the button. He flatted the small blind, and then the big blind John came along as well, and it came like ace king X. He check called flop, John folds, turn queen, he check calls turn, river brick, and then he check calls like 2/3 or 3/4 or something on the river, but like never once puts in a raise, and that's the only way he can go broke there, basically.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and he had ace queen, and then but then shortly thereafter, I think that left him with like 15 big blinds. So I think my assessment of how many chips he had is about right, because that left him with like 15 big blinds, and then he jammed. It folded to me on the button. I folded, and he jammed 15 big blinds like 7-3 suited or 7-3 offsuit or something, and ran into kings again. So like that's how he went out in seventh. And then yeah, from there on, I mean, it just became I was in a really favorable, like I ran well in this tournament. First of all, like obviously you have to run well in terms of cards on their backs to get there.
Yeah.
Not too many like flips or anything, but I ran really well in terms of circumstance, where I just would have like heaps of chips and the toughest players were to my right. And, I could just like ICM abuse the hell out of everybody to my right, and there was just nothing they could do about it. It's, no fault of their play whatsoever. It's just like they can't, when the difference between like sixth and first is like $130,000, they can't do anything too stupid, so.
We see those spots like when I rail the Sunday Million sometimes on like late on Sunday nights, and it's just, you'll see people who are just, they're ICM fucked. Like they can't do anything. They just have to have it or fold.
Yep.
Like those are their options. Because somebody will have, 40% of the chips at the table. And the other guys are just waiting for small stacks to bust. That's all they can do.
Yeah. Yep. And, my stance or my strategy, at least like 9-handed down, was like we're going to be in a pretty good seat to make it to like the top 3 like almost automatically at this point. Yeah. And it's just a matter of like, I have some pretty active players to my left. I had Alex to my left, John to his left, and then Vinny to his left. And those were by far the 3 most active players at the table, with the exception of like maybe myself. And so there wasn't going to be a lot of situations where I was just going to like raise it, take it. It was going to be a lot more situations where I was going to raise it, see a flop with like 1 or 2 of the guys to my left, and have to play accordingly. So,
right.
I just wasn't really in a situation where I could just like open super liberally and expect to like just print money.
It's the worst when you're in a situation like that, and like you just said, you go into the final table with pretty big stack. You're in good shape to get to the final 3, but you just get coolered like 7, 8, 9, like in hands that you can't avoid playing, and now you're in danger to make the final 3. Like that's the most frustrating situation in a final table, where like I don't even want to play these hands, yet I'm opening ace queen in the small blind, and I end up playing out of position, and circumstances I lose chips, or you get cooled, or aces lose to queens or something like that, and now you're stuck battling for the top 3.
Yep.
Just a frustration. So I almost, you're almost like, not that you want to pass up any EV spots, but it's almost better when you don't get the cards in that situation down from 9 to 5. Just so you avoid the frustration. But not that I would turn them down, but you know what I mean.
There was actually one really weird hand. Now I'm thinking about it. It was either like 8th place was knocked out in this spot, or like 7th place or 9th place was knocked out in this spot. And it was, I'm in the small blind, John's under the gun. John has a stack of, I think like 1.8 mil to start the hand, with blinds at like 30-60, I want to say. Mm-hmm. He opens for a min raise, and Kyle, who plays like a pretty tight, I don't want to say straightforward, but like a really tight game, and it has a short stack, so like for him to shove here, it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
But he only has like 5.5 or 6 big blinds. He shoves. It's folded to me in the small blind with like all of the chips. I think I have like 120 big blinds at this point. I have ace-10 suited. I just cold call from either the small blind or big blind with ace-10 suited, and John calls. Flop comes.
Would it be too nitty to just fold there?
I think it would be a little bit too nitty to just fold, but although I did consider it, I would consider folding in a spot where I think that I have a opponent who's like fairly sophisticated, left to act behind me, and like he might be able to like badger me out of more pots than I really want. My assumption for this hand was that he was going to play really straightforward, and we were just going to like try to play to knock out Kyle together.
Right.
Because, like, although we don't stand to make a ton of money between the difference between, like, say, 8th or 7th, like, just getting a player knocked out, like, I feel like this hand is just too strong to just fold straight up. But it doesn't necessarily act as a huge favorite over Kyle's shoving range or, like, John's opening range at this point.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
But from my chip stack perspective, like, I don't really stand to lose a lot of chips in this situation that often, and I felt it was going to play fairly straightforward, so, which turned out to be kind of wrong, but, so I flat ace-10 suited, and then John flats behind me, and, like, if John decided to, like, shove all in behind me or, like, 4-bet behind me, I definitely would have folded my hand, like, pretty confidently. So, like, for all those reasons, I didn't think flatting and, like, starting out of position would be too bad of a situation. Flop comes 10 of clubs, 9 of clubs, like X of diamonds, like 4 of diamonds, and I have ace 10 of diamonds. I think there was like 700,000 in the pot, if I'm doing my math right. And again, I'm guessing at what the blinds were, but I'm pretty sure they were like 30K, 60K.
Okay.
And so
you flop top pair and backdoor flush draw.
Top pair, backdoor flush draw, yeah.
Okay.
John had... Yeah, I think it was like 700K in there, and John had like 1.8 million.
Okay.
I actually donked for 250K, and then John made it 700K.
Ugh.
So, what are your guys' thoughts on that spot? And like, how would you prefer to play flop, if anything different?
I kind of like the donk
Yeah.
because you think the villain is somebody who's going to play like pretty straightforward in an attempt to knock this guy out, and like this is just sort of us going, "Hey man, I flopped top pair, you can fold now."
Yeah.
But that kind of makes me think that we're in big trouble when he raises. Like, what is he raising with? That.
And you said John was the one who plays relatively nitty straightforward, or that was the guy who?
That was Kyle's shove. Like, to say that
Kyle,
John
yeah.
plays relatively straightforward, I guess at this point was like a little bit too early to say. I mean, I had played with him before at like the final table bubble leading up to this point, but at the final table up to that point, and for like much of the final table after that point, he played like a very straightforward, like left me alone game. Wasn't willing to like duke it out because he was, at least intuitively, he seemed aware of like ICM and like he wants to progress forward and not, you know, dump off chips between like 6th and 3-handed so that he can, you know, get to the final 3 or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, my assumption on the hand was like, you know, if I donk lead, it's to like protect my hand against random overcards, to extract value from like other 10x's, extract value from like 1 over plus flush draws, and in other words, just to like get him to fold often. And I think I'm a like slight favorite against Kyle's likely holdings at this point. So, and this is one of the better flops for my hand anyway.
Yeah. It's just the only hard part is like when he raises, I'm thinking to myself, well, I might not be in good shape here, but I can't really figure out what he has, you know?
Yeah, my guesstimation of like his value range at this point in game was like king queen of clubs, like ace queen of club type hands. Assuming like ace king of clubs would have like come back over the top of me after I just flat.
Yeah.
Or
that's true.
And I see this all the time in live tournaments of this kind. Like there's like a subset of people who will be happy to like flat jacks, queens, and sometimes even kings to like CSA flop and then get it in.
Right.
That's what I was going to ask you about, what you think he does with jacks and queens.
Yeah, and that's exactly like kind of what I thought was going on. It was like, all right, he flatted queens, he saw a safe flop, but he's like making his stand, quote unquote, and like, you know, not seeing any other cards.
Right. He saw no ace on the board. He's happy. He's ready to just take it down now.
And I mean, this in this own tournament had happened to me already twice, where I think Patrick was the name of the teacher who busted 9th. He had flatted me where he was in position on me with like queens one time, saw like a 10 high flop, and I like bet folded a 10 against him, and he showed. And there was another one where a guy had limped queens or kings or whatever in the small blind, intending on me to raise, and then I checked it off, and then made like some absurd bet on the flop, trying to like protect his hand because, you know, he's like afraid of seeing turns and rivers. So I just thought that this is like a pretty common thing that you see live.
Yeah.
So like having him on like queens and jacks and like 2 overs with a flush draw, or like maybe even that in some extreme cases like a set of 9s, because I think like eights through queens are in his range there as well.
Yep.
So I bet folded
Yeah.
after like some consideration, and then got shown 2 sevens.
Whoa.
Wait.
Yeah.
And the flop was 10. What? 10.
10-9-4 with 2 clubs
10-9-4.
and a diamond, and he raised 7.
Oh,
Wow.
Donk lead.
that is pretty much the last thing I would have put him on.
Same.
Well, the problem is that I feel like your hand is kind of face up. Like,
It is, but I
know?
like I had felt that if he had seen me put my hand face up, his reaction was going to be to like leave it alone because he didn't want to like jeopardize his stack. And like he did put in like a third of his stack on the turn, with like a SPR of 3. So I just felt like I had no fold equity whatsoever. Like going with it, I would just get crushed by like his call range. I didn't think he had any raise folds here in his range, so I was obviously wrong about that. But that was like one of the.
I agree with you, and I would have done pretty much the same thing, but it feels like such a good spot to bluff you off. Like, I don't know, something about it. And I know I'm obviously saying this after you revealed his hand, so it's easy to jump to that rationale. But your hand is so face up that, and given the jacks and queens seem really strong in my range, like it just seems like I can make you believe that here. If I have the balls to put a big part of my stack at risk that I'm going to have to fold if you come over the top.
Yep.
But it's a great spot for it. It's a beautiful spot. Okay, anyway, continue.
Yeah, that's basically how that hand went. It's just like I bet folded. I guess like talking about it with other friends, like some had preferred like check calling just because like his range is still kind of strong, and like donking does put me in the spot that you're describing very well. Is like it puts my hand sort of face up. I have like a pretty capped range because I wouldn't be flatting like aces or kings here. I don't have too many sets in my range. I guess like I would flat 9 some of the time. I don't know. That's a pretty difficult spot as well. What I would do with like exactly 9s and 10s, I would guess I would 4-bet.
So if you check call there, I mean I know it depends on how the board runs out, but how are you feeling about? I think you're obviously going to give 2 streets there, but are you willing to go 3 streets with top pair if it remains top pair?
With a completely dry side pot, I would guess no, but
yeah, right.
That I think that I'm not getting triple barrel. I don't see any reason to like be triple barrel bluffing me, where like our stacks are so much deeper relative to Kyle's starting stack.
Right. So,
and again, like pulling off a triple barrel bluff so that you might make me fold the best hand, and then Kyle survives and triples up as opposed to like gets knocked out. Like that seems pretty ridiculous too.
Right.
That's actually what I thought about his raise as well. Is like, okay, yeah, it's like a really great spot if I put my hand quote unquote face up, and you can like exploit that and bluff me. Kyle's range is stronger than 7s plus, and like Kyle's range is like 7s plus and like ace king suited, ace queen suited here. So like you're not a huge favorite against Kyle's hand range already, and you're probably not you're definitely not a favorite against my bet range. But like if you can bluff me off and then somehow still be ahead of Kyle and then still hold, like yeah, it's a great play, and that's exactly what happened. But I do not think that's the the standard as opposed to like the exception of the rule.
So here's a question then. If I agree with everything you just said, and if we can safely fold to 3 barrels if we check call the flop and turn, is it detrimental to just play that straightforward and resign to give up chips to if he does 3-barrel, like, because it feels like such a safe play. Like you're for all the reasons you just said, I don't think he's going to be betting a river if he doesn't have it. So I'm playing you're playing super passively here, check calling 2 streets and then folding to a third because of the dynamic of the final table. Like, is that just too passive, or is that just maybe the way you should play it given ICM?
I don't know if it's too passive. It definitely has to do with like your view on the frequency of which you're going to get triple barreled. And my guess is in live poker in these settings and against like not to knock the final table, but like the field composition as well, the percentage of times you find yourself facing a triple barrel on like this flop and like any other run out, I would say would be like minuscule. And so, in general, I would find that like you can approach those spots by like folding more often than you feel is okay, because in general they don't happen that often, and when they do, it comes from a hand that's for value. This isn't like I'm not playing like a Stars final table against like 4 or 5, 6 Germans, So I don't anticipate getting triple barreled like nearly as often as we might be like estimating in our own heads.
Right, because part of my reaction is, well, I can check call 2 streets here, and if I get raised in a third, I can just fold. And it feels a little bit too predetermined, to take that strategy. And I know, like, turn cards and river cards can change the situation drastically, but it almost feels like too straightforward of a decision, and am I not thinking the hand through enough if I'm going to resign myself to that strategy, because it does seem safe to fold. Like, I don't know, I'm looking 2 streets ahead, and I'm like, well, if I can, I'm going to, I'll call here, I'll call a turn, and I'll fold a river, assuming nothing crazy happens with the board. It just feels too automatic and maybe not dynamic enough. But maybe in this situation, given what you just said about what happens on a river, maybe it's not the worst way to be thinking.
Yeah, like I haven't been put in too many of those spots. Never at a live final table, but like certainly not too many even online final tables. So I think one thing I could add to your thought process there would just be that, quite often when we check to check call, like there's still a subset of times where it checks through. So like him betting there, I don't think is incredibly rare, but it's relatively rare given the situation.
You're right.
That's us having Kyle all in and some sort of ICM implications of like Kyle's going to get stacked this hand more often if there's 2 of us versus if there's 1 of us, So I that's why I'm saying that I think, the check, he bets, call, check, he bets, call, check, he bets, river, that's going to happen like such a narrow percentage of times given the situation that I would expect most of the time it's for value and not some sick like triple barrel shove river with like air so that you can like bluff a dry side pot.
Yeah. Okay.
Or create a side pot off a dry side pot and then bluff it to win. Right. But ironically enough, like when he raised me and I folded, he like rolled his hand and said he wanted to get a refund on his all-in, like on his all-in with Kyle, because he knew that if I bet 250 and then like he said, he knew that if I bet 250 and was going to fold, Kyle's all-in was only for like 300K or something, so he'd be like basically breaking even on the hand and like whatever free rolling like whatever equity he had against Kyle. Which I thought was a really interesting way to put it. But
so what did he end up having?
So he ended up having 7s, and Kyle had 8.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned that
7 held.
Right. Okay. Sick hand. Oh.
But
so cool. So that
that's weird. That's a weird spot to be in.
Very.
So that was like roughly 7-handed.
Yep, 7-handed. Then I had the kings to 7 or 8-handed. He boss. We go 7-handed. I had kings to Alex's ace queen. Alex, again, I think did a really good job not to go broke, because I can tell you, like, quite a few of my friends would have definitely 3-bet that hand for value.
Yep.
And given that same run out in that situation, I most definitely would have stacked him by the turn. And then what else? Oh, there was a hand against Vinny where I was kind of in a pretty interesting spot on the river we could talk about, I guess.
Sure. Is this the one that was on the HPT Facebook page?
Yep, it was on their Facebook page. I think I opened it was folded to me, and I opened ace-jack offsuit in the cutoff.
So how many chips did you start with?
This hand I started with over 4 million, I'm sure.
Okay, and what are the blinds at?
I think blinds are 20-40.
Okay, so
they said that I opened at 95K on the blog. I don't really know if I was opening to that that absurd of a size. I think I would have either made it 80 in a ante or 100. I don't think I was making it 95,000 at that point. But
right. All right. Well, let's go with roughly 80 to 100. So you opened it from ace. You opened with ace jack off.
From the cutoff.
From the cutoff. And where's Vinny? Vinny's
actually, I believe, in the small blind then, if I open the cutoff, because John was the button.
Okay. So he opens, and you said you're 5-handed here or 4-handed?
We're more than 4-handed, because Vinny, I don't think Vinny made it 4. Vinny would have busted out in 5, so
okay.
The furthest we were down was 5-handed, but I think this is actually like 6 or 7-handed.
6 or 7. Okay.
20-40K, I have over 4 mil. Vinny has, I think at this point, like, Vinny actually has like 3. So I open a 95K, Vinny calls, either from the small blind or big blind. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Yep.
Flop comes ace of hearts, queen of hearts, 5 of diamonds. I believe we have the jack of hearts. He checks and we c-bet 80K into like 200.
Yep.
He calls, turns the 4 of hearts. He checks and I c-bet. I honestly don't even remember it being the 4 of hearts though. It says again on the I'm looking at the blog right now and it says it's the 4 of hearts. But I remember it like being like a really safe board to continue betting with an ace. So 4 of hearts or not, it's a 4 for sure.
Okay.
He checks and I bet 225K into like just under 400.
I love every action so far. It all seems great.
And he calls. And again, he's been playing at this point of this tournament, like he's been playing like pretty much most of the hands. I would say he's V-pipping like, you know, between like 40 and 50%, and like no 3-bets of any kind, but definitely just like calling and seeing a lot of flops. Like he's definitely used to the, you know, deep stack live cash situation.
Yep.
So like him having like 3.2 mil at 40K big blind probably feels like absolute heaps to him.
Right. So he's got a bunch of slightly weaker aces, a couple smaller pairs, you know, 7s, 8s, 9s. Like what are you putting him on here with the 2 calls?
Yeah, I think like the dream scenario would be like he has like a ace that's dominated. He's most definitely capped because I think he would still aggressively 3-bet like ace jack suited plus here.
Yep.
Maybe like ace jack suited is the fringe hand, but like ace queen suited plus for sure, and like post flop, even if he flatted like ace queen offsuit, I think by now we would have heard from him if he had something like ace queen and flop
Totally
2 pair.
Totally agree.
So I think his range is a lot of like flush draws. Again, it says it's the 4 hearts on the turn, and I don't think that's what it was. I think it was an offsuit 4. This isn't generally like a sizing I would take with like the jack of hearts on a 3-heart board where his range is some flush draws. So anyway, yeah, he check calls the 4, and river pairs bottom card, pairs of 4. So ace queen 5 4 4. Vinny checks for a third time. What would you guys do?
I'd be betting for value here. I think he could have a lot of queens, queen jack, queen 10. Wait, your first he checked, right? Yeah. So then, you know, he may call. He's probably folding with 8s, 9s, 10s, or 6s, 7s, but you're beating those anyway. So I think there's just a lot of hands here where I just feel like you're ahead almost all the time here, so you might as well bet. It's a matter of sizing is the question, I think.
I would just the only thing I would say about like your analysis of his hand range is I would probably like cut out the like 6s through 8s at this point. Just those
you're right.
fold to a double barrel often.
That's
and
fair.
I might even cap out 10s because of the pre-flop action. I think 10s is probably like a hand that he would be more apt to 3-bet rather than flat. And again, this is sort of dependent. It would be better if I knew exactly if he was the small blind or the big blind, because like out of the big blind, you know, I think it'd be a lot less common for him to just flat 10s there. And I think out of the small blind, it might be slightly more common for him to flat 10s out of the small blind without like a great reason behind it. But that's just what I generally see in these live tournaments. Is
I agree with that. I think the bigger part of his range is a weaker ace or a queen of some sort. Anyway.
Okay, so we chop against the weaker ace as well here. So, like, how would you plan on sizing in a pot of like approximately 900K?
You're
with
right.
Like
there's
SPR on Rivers 3, if that matters to you.
There's 2 4s here, right?
Yep.
So you're chopping with a weaker ace. I just don't feel like you're ever behind here. I think you could probably. I think you're either getting value, or maybe even you can potentially. Like, not saying that he definitely would fold a weaker ace, but you might be able to get him to fold a weaker ace if you bet big enough here. And I don't think you're behind anyway. So I think I'd bet pretty big, actually. Well, but then you want to get the value from the queens.
Well, you've definitely walked right over what I think is the biggest decision on the river here, is like whether you feel like you can get called by a queen and like bet small, or you think that like you might be able to put a lot of pressure on somebody with like a chopping ace and just like blast away.
That's right. That's right. That is that's exactly it. That's exactly where my head.
And I think a lot of it has to depend on. I mean, it sounds like you've played a fair bit with this villain, so I think a lot of it depends on just how often we think we can actually get him to fold weak aces, and how willing is he to, like, if he's a cash game player, like, we might actually be able to get him to call with a queen if we bet, like, 25% of pot or something.
I mean, if we go with pure probabilities, he's more likely to have a queen than an ace, so I guess I would size it to get value from the queen.
Yeah, pure probability, it definitely has more queens than aces, and like with flush draws bricking and such, I think it's a wash between all the like hands that he had that were draws that have now just become air on this river, on this run out. So like those hands are all just a wash as well. So it just becomes like, do we try and, I didn't really even think too long about the blasting him and off an ace part, just because game flow, I think like an ace was pretty much an automatic call, and he had been playing like pretty loose and probably just like a little bit too call heavy and gamble heavy at this point of the final table.
Right.
So I actually bet smaller, trying to value target a queen.
Yeah.
I bet 325K and then like approximately 900. I'm fudging numbers and like rounding, I think, in my head, but it was definitely 325K into like, I sized it intending it to be like 33% pot or something like that.
Yeah, that's where I ended up in my head too. I think that's right. What about the element of, do you think he would hero a larger bet? Sometimes maybe I'd get too fancy with this kind of thought process, but is there a larger bet size where we look bluffy and he's going to hero us with his queen?
We certainly have that dynamic where I could make it, like a bigger size and like polarize, so to speak, my range on the river between like bricked heart flush draws and like the super nuts. And then apparently this would be like a little bit of a merge, I guess.
It'd be merged with the ace, get him to fold an ace, right?
Hashtag merge.
Hashtag merge.
Hashtag doesn't pay.
Yeah, I think that dynamic certainly existed, and you could make some sort of argument for it. I think that the percent chance that he calls between the two bets like drops off enough that you're not getting as much of an expectation. Because I think for him, like 325K at this point of the tournament would have been like a pretty automatic, just like whatever, call it, who cares?
Yeah.
Because I think, again, like thinking as primarily a cash player, he's probably not going to worry about like how much of it is in terms of percentage of his stack or like ICM implications of a call here. But he will definitely know intuitively, like if you bet maybe 700K and he only starts the river with like 2.4 million, like now it's starting to become like a question. He has to start questioning calling like much more harder than he does with 325K. Because 325K is like, well, still got 2.4 million or something. Like can certainly survive, So I just felt that like value wise, like 325% or 325K was like almost an automatic. And as soon as I got anything over half pot, we're definitely talking the spectrum of like he's gonna probably just fold everything I beat and just like call with all his chops.
Right.
And then I guess sometimes just like try and hero it off with like queen jack or something. But
right. I think you get paid such a high percentage as a smaller bet that it does lean towards that from an EV perspective. So that makes sense.
And I guess, so we decided the term is not really a heart, so I guess he had some sort of flush draw. Like, I'm trying to think of what he called two streets with that he didn't call the river with.
He did call the river.
Oh, he did call.
He called the river, and I won the whole pot.
Oh, okay. So he just mucked. He didn't show his hand, I guess.
Yeah, I rolled my hand and he got to muck.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I just saw in the description that you bet and he.
Yeah, see it.
Oh yeah, he does say calls a bet 325,000.
Yeah.
So I guess he didn't. A queen, I guess.
Yeah,
it had to be a queen. Like that's the only thing it can be, right?
It had to be like king, queen, queen, jack, or whatever.
Yep. It's gotta be.
Yeah.
I did like the tiniest little fist pump when I got it, just when I got the pot scooped to me, because I was like, yes, river decision was correct, you know.
Yeah.
You're like, got him. Yeah, and I guess knowing that it was a queen, bigger would have been bad because he probably could have found a fold if you made it like 650 or something, or maybe even bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Like he probably has to fold a queen then.
Yeah, and then he got Jackson against Josh's twos, and Josh flopped him pretty dead, which is pretty unfortunate for him. For Vinny, I should say.
I think I actually saw that hand on TV. I remember that one. Or on the live stream on Twitch, I think is actually where I saw it.
I think Josh's get in there was like pretty standard. I think Josh started the hand with like between like 16 and 18 bigs, and Vinny had been like RFIing like all the hands when it had gotten to him at that point. Like if I had opened or John had opened, he would, like not, I don't want to say play straightforward, but he wouldn't, get too insane in those situations. But when it was folded to him in late position at that point, I think it was 5-handed at that point. He was opening, I don't want to say infinite, but he was opening quite a few.
Right,
so,
right.
For Josh to defend twos there, I think would probably just be unnecessary. And shoving all in just to like try and win the pot there can't be that bad. He's not doing great against Vinny's call range, but other than that, like I don't know how else I would play deuces given how Vinny had been playing up to that point in the final table. So
yeah, what is that? I'm curious because we were talking a little bit before we started recording about Mount Pleasant, about the Soaring Eagle, and how much has changed and stuff. What is it like? What's the atmosphere like there during that final table? Does it feel anything like a final table in Vegas, or is it just like completely different? Because to me, that casino just doesn't seem like the kind of place where there would be a final table happening ever.
Well, on top of that, like all those things you said are true, and then like on top of that, it's a Monday now, and it's in the afternoon, and we're in a ballroom in a studio. So no, it didn't quite feel like. Didn't feel anything like a World Series final table. Not that I have that experience to stack against, but it was a cool setting in terms of like you kind of felt like you were in like a little bit of a bubble and you could concentrate better. My dad had came up and like surprised me for it, which was like probably by far the coolest part of the entire thing. So,
oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
I had been calling him and keeping him updated, and like the night before I told him like, hey, we got like a third of the chips in play with 9 left. Like we're in a pretty good spot. And, he had said like, oh yeah, good luck, congratulations. And then when we went to go into like the front door of the ballroom for the tournament, he was already sitting there, which was really cool. I didn't know he was coming.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
So
that's really cool.
That part of the atmosphere was obviously great. Like having my dad there was like a calming effect, and he doesn't really know too much about poker. I mean, like we used to play every so often on my kitchen table because I would just get bored and challenge him and stuff. But he, not too long ago, like when I was finished with school and stuff, and I was like bouncing around between like home and East Lansing, I had to like sit him down and explain like how poker works and like how people can actually make money at it and know they're going to make money at it. Like, please don't kick me out of the house because I don't have a job.
Right.
So it was really cool to have him there for like that, I don't want to say crowning achievement, but that, a little bit of vindication that, like poker can turn out well and like good things do happen to people who work hard in it.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, for people who don't know, I went to college in Mount Pleasant where this tournament took place, so it's kind of weird to think that this went down there. But I've always said I'm going to go back and play that tournament one of these days because everybody's always like, well, you have to go back. It's your alma mater. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go back there ever. But I think one of these days I'm definitely going to have to make the trip. I mean, I still have family there, so it's like I could see family and make a personal trip out of it too, but maybe play a little poker and maybe make a final table with Chris Moon. How much fun would that be?
Maybe we'll go 1 and 2.
Yes, apparently you have that effect on people, so I guess I have to go now.
That was one of the coolest tweets after that. It was like someone had, I forgot whose name it was, but had mentioned like, oh, Chris and Josh did something my friends have literally been joking about for years, like going together to a tournament and finishing 1 and 2.
Yeah. That is just A fantastic story. So how did you guys get there? What after this, were you the chip leader, or was someone else? Was Josh the chip leader after this?
No, I was chip leader like wire to wire from like day 2 to two-handed, and then did not win the tournament.
And I'm actually trying to remember. So I was watching the feed. I'm trying to remember if like you. I mean, I know the bust out hand was pretty much a cooler sort of. I mean, for you certainly. I'm trying to remember how the ship sort of shifted to him. Did he like kind of grind it out and sort of beat you, quote unquote, heads up, or was it just sort of small pots, coolers?
He was certainly playing well heads up, and like I've sat and watched him play, some heads up tournaments, and I mean, I did not think by any means that like I think it was a 3-2 chip leader to start, or slightly under that amount, because he stacked the last 2 people, so he picked up like quite a few chips before heads up. But even going into that, I did not expect like I'm going to win very much more than the straight up percentages of our stacks right now. Like,
right.
If I had 57% of the chips in play, like I did not see myself as like a 65% favorite or something like that to win. Josh doesn't have a ton of no limit experience, and he doesn't have a ton of tournament experience, but he knows his no limit well enough, and he knows his heads up game and his game plans for those situations very well. I've sat and watched him at like heads up W coops just like mow over Poker Stars pros. Like I won't mention any names, but like I sat and watched him play like a PLO heads up against the Poker Stars pro, and just like mow this guy down, mow this guy down, mow this guy down, lose a flip, start over, mow this guy down, mow this guy down, mow this guy down, lose a flip, start over, like, and then eventually win the thing. So like having seen him do that, like I know that I'm not going to go in there and just like announce my presence and just win by any means. But there were a few pots where he got like a pretty perfect river on a spot where I took an unconventional line with top pair and a flush draw. I think I checked off like I defended 10-9 with the 9 of hearts. It came like 10-7-6 all hearts, I want to say. A check called flop. Turn was like a brick 3. I donk led turn. He called. And river was a 9, offsuit 9. And I just check called like, I think it was like a 60% pot bet or whatever. And he had 8-5 with the 8 of hearts. So like I had him, a couple spots where like I have him dead to rights and just like paid off river, but like just really unfortunate run outs basically. And like you'll see the last hand, like, obviously very unfortunate run out as well.
Yeah, let's talk about that last hand, because it was, I mean, I guess it's not all that like super interesting from a strategy standpoint, but it's pretty friggin' exciting, I guess.
It's going to make for
great
TV when it comes out, for sure.
Yeah,
Do you know, did they tell you when it's coming out?
They had mentioned that they anticipated it was coming out a couple months, and then I had talked to a friend from the final table who said that he heard a rumor that they were behind. I'm not really 100% sure when it's supposed to come out, but I'm sure I'll figure it out when it does and be able to tell everybody or whatever. If anybody actually cares and wants to be awake at 3 a.m. watching like Fox Sports Cincinnati or whatever it's on.
I want to watch.
I do too.
But yeah, the last hand was this is pretty interesting. He had already built up a chip lead. I think there was 15 million in chips in play, and I had like high 3s, low 4s million in chips. And the blinds were either like 50 and 100K or like 60, 120K or something. I opened the button to like our standard size at that point, which was like 2.25. He 3-bet to what was the standard size at that point, which was 7. I actually just flatted aces which was going to produce an SPR of like exactly 2, if I'm doing my math right. So, like the strategy wasn't too insane. I think just flatting there was just because of the dynamic of the game so far. It was that, Josh had been 3-betting like an expanded linear value range from the big blind, rather than defending now, just given that he had a chip lead and was putting pressure on me. Yep. I felt I had already 4-bet once, which was like a really hefty 4-bet because I had like 36 bigs and pocket 3s, and he had 3-bet, so I just ripped, and got a fold earlier in the heads-up match. And so In this situation, I just figured if I had 4-bet to anything other than all-in, it just looks like super, super strong. And if I have 4-bet to all-in, I just make him fold like a very high percentage of the time, just given that his 3-bet range is much wider than it normally would be here. And I blocked 2 cards from his calling range as well. So I just ended up flatting and just deciding like I was going to be able to get it all in on like quite a few flops anyway. And, you know, there's so many flops where he just, like, flops top pair and actually only has, like, 20% equity against my hand. So I just felt like it was a great spot to flat there.
I totally agree. I think given that SPR, it seemed, and for those who don't know, SPR is stack to pot ratio. It's not going to be hard to get this in post flop. So and you're gonna, like you said, you're gonna make him fold a lot of hands when you 4-bet. So makes sense.
Yep. So yeah, I just flatted. Flop came King Jack 5 with 2 diamonds, and I have the Ace of Diamonds. He c-bets for 7 bigs again, so like exactly the same size as his 3-bet. And I shove all in for 27, and then he snap calls, and he has King Jack. The turn's a 5, so pairs bottom card.
Yeah. So now you're ahead.
So now I'm ahead, and we're looking at like being like even heads up or like just slight favorite heads up now, and then river's a jack.
I remember watching it and just being like, "Oh my god, that actually just happened."
So painful. I just feel for you.
The only thing that made it kind of okay is I think it had dawned on me at that point that you and him were friends because you seemed incredibly happy for him.
I was.
Like you did not. I mean, it's the first time I think I've ever seen anybody lose, especially in a scenario like that, where I was like, "Well, he didn't even really flinch. Like it doesn't seem to have bothered him one bit. Like he's just over there going, "Good job, man, you won."
There are definitely 2 factors in play there. Like first was absolutely like very, very happy for Josh. I think he played like incredibly well at the final table. Obviously, like had some good runouts and some good situations happen to him. But like he said first thing himself, like you need these things to happen to you if you're going to win a tournament, and that's almost like universally true. If you win a tournament, like that shit happens for you in your favor all the time. But then also like, you know, like I said earlier, I got into this game as like a teenager because I saw like Moneymaker win the main event. And, like, yeah, I wanted to win a live tournament, but, like, it's not exactly my childhood dream to win, like, an HBT bracelet. Like, not to shit on it or anything, but... So it's, like, It was disappointing not to take first, but at the same time, it was, like, you know, if I'm going to lose to anybody, it's Josh, and, you know, it's, like, not such a bad life, you know, so...
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, pardon me, I only won low 6 figures instead of mid 6 figures, or whatever the numbers were.
Exactly. I think I told the girl who Tatiana interviewed me after, and I just said like, yeah, not bad for a Monday, like whatever. Life could be so much worse, you know. And not to mention too, like Josh again said this at his in his interview, so I'm not giving anything and that's not public info, but you know, he called it his summer saver. Like he plays really big PLO, way bigger than I play. And had just like a pretty god-awful summer at that. So it was that effect as well. It's like, it's my friend. It's great my friend won. It's also really great that my friend salvaged like a terrible summer. And like I also got paid as well. Like it wasn't so bad, you know.
Right.
Life's good.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So what's next on deck for the live poker schedule? Anything planned?
Yeah, you know, the HPT staff had kind of mentioned to both of us that with the way that they structure their Player of the Year, we're both like in pretty good running for the Player of the Year if we string together like another final table or like some cashes. So I skipped I think they went to Missouri next after that, but they're back in Indiana, East Chicago, glorious East Chicago, later this weekend. So I'm taking off either tomorrow or Thursday to go to that. And then there's the Midwest, like, poker schedule is actually like, pretty good the next couple of months. I'm looking at it right now. The 19th, the 12th, 19th, and 26th, I'm pretty much off. But then October, you know, we mentioned there's those 4 ACR millions, and then there's also WSOP circuit in South Indiana, WSOP circuit in Hammond, which is like one of the biggest ones in the country. And then MSPT is coming to Battle Creek, which is another like random casino an hour away from me. And I'm going to go to that. That's usually one of their biggest stops also on their tour all year. And I bubbled their final table last time, so I'm like coming back for vengeance this time.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah,
that's cool.
That's basically the live circuit for like the rest of the year, probably something like that.
And as far as online, I mean, I know you mentioned the $1 million guarantees that are coming up on ACR. I think most of us in the States will be playing those. But I think last time we had you on, you were sort of in the heat of the going across the border every so often to play a lot online.
I was, yep.
What's up with that? Is that still in the mix, or are you a little less of that now that you're playing so much live?
Yeah, definitely a little less of it, just because it's like a pain in the butt to do it, and I'm playing like a lot more live. Like, you know, PLO scene around here is quite profitable. Get to go to a couple live events every so often, and then like I said, the U.S. sites are like decent alternatives. Like if you're playing on Bovada and ACR and such, and putting in some decent volume, like those are decent alternatives as well. I'll plan on going over a couple times in between all these travels to play some W Coop events. I think I'm going to try and pick up like, you know, a couple of the Sunday schedules and then play a couple of the Super Tuesdays and any other like random days I can get off to go over there as well. I'll probably try to play. But other than that, like generally the summer, you know, obviously didn't play at all while I was at the World Series, and didn't play too much beforehand or when I got back either. So it's been quite a while since I've been putting in like a lot of volume on like the Euro sites and stars.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I get a lot of people say to me, you know, oh, you must hate that you can't play on stars. And I kind of do, but more for like nostalgic reasons than anything else. Like, I mean, honestly, the tournament schedules and stuff have gotten to the point in the States where I don't even really care that much anymore.
They're getting back
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to fire the Sunday Million every Sunday, but it's not like I'm sitting here like only being able to play like 40-man $5 tournaments. You know, there's plenty of good value tournaments to play, and I would take stars back tomorrow, please. I'll use my one time, but it's not to the point where I'm like, oh my god, I have to get to Mexico next weekend so I can play.
Yeah. And you know, Stars is a great site and offers like all these big tournaments too, but like I would say that most pros, like their average ROI on Stars is lower than it would be on other sites as well. So it, you know, there's definitely a trade-off to being able to like grind a ton of volume on there versus like getting forced to play on these softer sites and playing like just a schedule that's a big mix of like maybe 3-4 sites rather than just like a Stars heavy schedule, you know?
Right. Yeah, and from what I've seen, people aren't thrilled with Stars since Amaya took them over anyway, and it doesn't seem to be as friendly to the, you know, customer friendly as it used to be. So given the lower ROI and maybe the less friendly atmosphere, maybe you know, maybe it's not what it's cracked up to be.
I definitely took Derek's approach though to like the nostalgic reasons. Like when I first was, you know, like first case after like Black Friday, you know, I still was coaching and I was coaching some people from overseas, and you know, they would tell me like they would always send me hand histories from like, you know, them playing like iPoker or something like that. Like it was never Stars, and like I had mentioned to like one student, like, do you really like not play any Stars? And he's like, yeah, no, it's kind of like a whatever site. Like it's pretty tough to play on. And I'm just like, well, that's a slap in the face to a guy like me. All he wants to do is play Poker Stars, and he can't. And you can, and you just don't care. Like, what is your problem? I don't understand you.
Right.
But nowadays, I can definitely, you know, now that I've had more time on it and stuff, I could definitely see why, you know, between that and like you said, Diego, the Amaya stuff, like why people don't want to play on it as much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, it's kind of an interesting dynamic. Well, like I said, all that being said, please come back ASAP.
Yeah, that's fair.
we would like the return of Poker Stars. Well, very cool, Chris. Thanks for taking some time. It's like I said, it's been way too long since we've had you on, and good luck. We'll keep following, and make sure you let us know when the final table is going to air. We'll make sure and let the TPE Nation know so they can all watch.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, the spoilers have been given, so everybody knows where you finish, but that's okay.
There's still one really cool hand that you'll see that I think I played really well that we didn't get to talk about. So
nice.
Had some all the fun like ICM considerations and all that juiciness in it. So I think when that one gets shown, like we could do like a, I don't know, little video or post on it or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, thanks again, Chris. And we'll take a very quick break, and then Diego and I will come back and wrap things up here on the Tournament Poker Edge podcast.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Chris. Good talking to you again.
City blinded, baby. There ain't a thing in the world they can do. I said the Motor City's blinded, baby. There ain't a thing in the world they can do. My hometown burning down to the ground. Said in Vietnam. Let me tell you, started on 12th and Claremont that morning. It made the cops outside all freak out. You know, it started on 12th and Claremont that morning. It made the Gestapo jump and shout. The fire wagons kept coming, but the snipers wouldn't let them put it out. Don't let them put it out. Bursting all around me. Yes, and the soldiers standing everywhere. I said there was firebombs bursting all around me, people.
Welcome back to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. Big thanks to Chris Moon for stopping in and talked about his run in the Heartland Poker Tour. Always good to catch up with him. Great guy.
He is a fine young man, I must say. Fine young man.
Yeah, had a good time hanging out with him a bit in Vegas this summer. But it's weird because we never really, I mean, as much as people probably think we're all like hanging out together all the time, we rarely ever see each other. So like I see Chris once a year, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of good to catch up and see how people are doing. And obviously it's great to see that he's doing well.
I meant to ask him what is up with his Twitter because last time he was on here, I referenced that he has a fantastic Twitter account. Like, he's one of the funniest people I follow on Twitter. And I guess he's caught back up. But he's slowed down for a while, and I think he was off of Twitter for a while. But it looks like he's back up, so never mind.
Yeah, I wonder if that has to do with his whole, like, just not tweeting while he's playing, and he's playing a lot. So.
Maybe that was it. Yeah. And maybe he was off during the World Series. That was okay. That must have been it, because he was definitely quiet for a while. It must have been right around the World Series. But yeah, if you're looking, if you don't follow him, which Chris Moon, WHICH, Chris Moon, very funny guy. And on Twitter, he's absolutely hilarious, so you should definitely follow him.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool. So thanks to Chris for stopping in. We'll make sure and catch up with him again, hopefully sooner than we did this time.
Yeah, we gotta get him making a video soon too. We have to. I don't know when the last time he made a video, but his video.
Yeah, I guess it has been a little while, but it sounds like he'll be grinding these ACR millions. So maybe we'll get him to turn on the recorder just during one of those one time, because I know a lot of our members play those too, and it'll be cool for them to see one of those guys playing it.
Perfect. Good thinking.
Speaking of videos and PPE and all that fun stuff,
yeah,
what's new?
Lots new. So first off, reinvigorate the pro roster with a bunch of new additions. So last podcast we announced, I believe, IGT, who is a turbo mastermind. His series came out just, I think, the same day we dropped the last podcast. Hugely highly rated, Has done very, very well, and he's a great guy, and his videos are awesome. So IGT his first series is run, and I have his next series ready to roll as well. So he'll continue the good stuff. Thesaurus, interesting guy. First of all, another Twitter account you must follow.
Yes, for sure.
What is his Twitter handle?
I believe it's at... Well, no, I don't think it is. It's like a number.
Let's see here. I'll get him out here. The Thesaurus, so as if you were spelling Thesaurus, but it's Thesaurus 831. And we were actually trying to get him on to coincide with the dropping of his new video, but he was at a rap battle, which is something that he is a world rap battle champ, right?
Yeah, one of the most well-known, most accomplished rap battlers. So for poker players, they might remember him as being the guy who Assassinato battled at the World Series 2 years ago.
Yeah, that was you can watch. Just look up Assassinato, Thesaurus, Rap Battle, WSOP on YouTube, and it's actually really entertaining. They both were awesome. But yeah, he's a new TP pro. Extremely well spoken, very engaging. It's fun watching his videos, and he's obviously a very good player as well. Good teacher. So he's got a new video, that new series that is currently running, and we definitely got to get him on. He's an entertaining guy, and an interesting life story. So what he does aside from poker is really interesting. So we have to bring him on. And then I'm not going to. We have a couple more pros starting up. We will announce them at the next podcast, but we're continuing to roll out new pro series, new pros in their new series all the time. We thought it was a good time to bring in some new blood, and we're in the course of rolling that out right now. And then we still have a lot of great stuff from the old timers. Ginger 45, Matthew Hunt, the guy you're cheating on.
Your eventual replacement.
My eventual replacement on the TP podcast, Matt Hunt. You guys host the Mid-Stakes Living podcast together. He's a great guy. I'm just kidding. He just turned in a series that's going to go live in a couple of days, Zero to Hero, where he walks through a coaching program with one of his students, goes through some leak finding, some specific hand coverage, and then an MTT hand history review. IGT, like I said, has his next series coming up. A couple of new pros are rolling out some content. Casey returns with another series. Jane Kerstetter returns with another series. So we got a lot of great videos coming. And then I will end the commercial right there. Last thing I do think is worth mentioning, we also have upgraded our forum. People have been asking for new forum software for a while, and we were able to roll that out just today. So those of you who share hands and are part of the TP community, pretty nice major upgrade to our forum software, and we also have a new hand history converter coming in the next couple of days as well. So some good stuff there going on, TP.
Yep, no lack of new content or new progress in the development of the website, I guess, for lack of a better description. So
TP's a fun place to run, man.
Absolutely. We're lucky. We're lucky.
We are lucky.
We get to do this.
We do. We get to talk poker for a couple hours. It's fun stuff.
It doesn't completely suck. So I think that's it, right?
That's it.
We can wrap this up.
Yeah. So,
Sweet.
Like I said, anyone who is who's going to be at the Borgata next week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned that in the first segment. Anyone who's going to be at the Borgata next week, please. Hopefully, I don't have time to talk because I'm running deep in tournament. But I'm just kidding. On breaks, I'd love to catch up with any TP members. I know Pierre's going to be there, so. Let's hope I run deep and have some stuff to talk about. But if you're there, let's catch up. TP members.
Yeah, good luck to you and to anybody else going to that. Wish I could attend,
yep.
But I'll be here in the deep south, sweating my ass off still.
Watching the farm.
Yes. Cool. All right. We will wrap it up there. Thanks again to Chris Moon for joining us. Thank you, Diego, for always being a wonderful co-host. And thank you to everybody out there in the TPE community. I got to be nice to you once in a while. But yeah, thanks to all the TPE community for listening, and we will be back hopefully very, very soon with another episode of the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. See ya.
Like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Carry mine, though she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Carry mine, though she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa.